Good evening and welcome to the special broadcast. This is part of our Karnataka poll coverage and we're bringing you this broadcast from the Alsur Lake because while this is one of the positive stories of restoration in Bengaluru city, this is a city where over 300 lakes were there in the heart of the city within the BBMP limits. They're down to below 200 even as we speak. Some of the lakes, we've seen pictures and you would perhaps, when I tell you about the lakes of Bangalore, you'd recollect not just the frothing lakes, some of them even catching fire at times, and several questions about encroachments that have taken place. The larger question is, how did Bengaluru, which was known as the city of lakes, end up as a city with not just flooding, but also at the same time, ironically, drinking water shortage? To talk about that, I have with me Smriti Harits of the BJP, Pratap Kanagal of the JDS joins us. We also have with us Asha Krishnaswamy, senior journalist. Sandeep Aniruddhan is the founder of the Citizens Agenda for Bengaluru, who's joining us at the moment. I'm going to start with you first, Asha, and I'm going to ask you, we have seen how as recently as October 2022, how NGT members, former NGT members visited and they analyzed this issue of Vartur Lake, Belandur Lakes, frothing. And one of the things they spoke about is that, effluents are just not being treated well, and untreated and treated water is being mixed. This is leading to all sorts of chaos in Bangalore's ecosystem, and perhaps the frothing is just one symptom of that. Who really and where really should we look at in terms of fixing responsibility and fixing this problem ultimately?
It's a collective responsibility. Let's say that one department or one individual has to take care of these things. Everybody has to understand the value of water first. We have seen wars for water, still we have not woken up. And then if there are stringent rules, in files it is no use. It should be implemented. And it should be implementable also. That is where it is lacking, There is a lot of awareness NGOs and government is creating. But people have to get involved. They had to own up the lakes and even water. If they understand the value of water, then this problem will not be there.
All right. Very important that you're starting off from the perspective of citizens. But I want to start with also, the government also somewhere runs so many of these organizations, whether it's the BWSSB, whether it's the role of the BDA, all of that somewhere or the other does come into question. Several of them are civic bodies. Some of them come directly under the state government. And therefore, I want to just read out to you, Smriti, what was said by the Green Tribunal in the year 2018. They said that the Belandur Lake has become the largest septic tank due to the sheer callousness and indifference. Of course, this is a legacy problem. Nobody is denying that this problem has started today during this regime. But what has the government done, for instance, in terms of the rejuvenation, in terms of making a difference on ground?
Right, like you very rightly pointed out, this is a legacy issue that we have inherited. If you look at the history of Karnataka's government, over the last 50 years, more than 40 years of government has been run by, Congress and other parties. It's only, about 9 years that the BJP has been in power, and we have always been totally committed to the cause of sustainability and to the cause of the environment. Be it the recent COP27 where the Prime Minister made a very bold announcement saying that we will bring down our carbon emissions by 40%, or with him visiting, Bandipur in just a couple of days for the National Tiger Day. I think the intent of the government, of the BJP is very clear in the matters when it comes to the environment and sustainability. Now coming back to Bangalore lakes, I think we need to go back and look at how did we end up in this place in the first place. Look at what were these actions that were taken by the former governments that led us to this place to be. So the Budgetary government, our Chief Minister, has instituted an inquiry to find out which lakes have been encroached upon, what have been the misgovernance issues with response to it. And when this was brought about in the assembly, there was huge furore by the opposition parties, and rightly so, because it was their doing that has left us at this point in time.
Okay, let me put that question to Pratap. Pratap, it's the doing of the opposition, including parties like yourself, which have ruled in Karnataka, have ruled as recently as 2018. Even for a year and a half, your government was in power. She's fixing the responsibility on the JDS and the Congress. How do you look at it?
I completely disagree with Smriti on this. It's just passing the blame. That's all. But as she said, it's a collective responsibility of past governments. There are even if she talks about 50 years, I will take 15 years. Out of 15 years, they have been in power for 9 years. What have they done? No. Even yesterday, last week, there was a case where the lake was encroached. There was a huge road was built. When opposition parties approached, then the minister himself was involved in that. So that's the government is what government.
He's throwing the ball right back at you.
No, I'll tell you, in 2018, the Siddaramaiah government passed a notification that said that any water body which did not have water in it anymore, as in if a lake did not have water in it anymore, it had to be removed from the survey maps.
Okay.
Now, whose purpose does it serve? Right? The purpose that it serves is that of the land mafia, that of the real estate agencies, and nobody else. So it goes to show that over these years, the Congress and other opposition parties have worked in cahoots with these mafia agents to rob Bangalore of its natural beauty.
Okay, that's a serious problem because there has been political patronage, Sandeep, we are told, by successive governments. He's of course cited one example, but I'm sure there are several examples and there are serious issues because, you know, large parts of Bangalore's urbanization has been at the cost of these very lakes and encroachment. Today you're at a situation where about 90% or 80% of the lakes are standing encroached even as we speak.
Yes, Madhav. Firstly, Bangalore district had more than 2,000 lakes. So we are left with only about 400.
So when you say 2,000, you mean the entire district, not just the city limit, not just the BBMP
Not
limits.
the CBD.
Right.
And we are left with only about 400, which means we've lost about 80% of our lakes. Now, that's just accounting for lakes. We have wetlands like marshes, smaller ponds, streams, floodplains, then the buffer zones. All of these, if you see about anywhere between 20 to 30% of Bengaluru would have just been wetlands. And these are protected under the wetland rules, under the Environment Protection Act. So basically what you're seeing is lawlessness. All this amounts to, there are laws, there's the KTCD Act also to protect lakes, there are NGT rules also. But what transpires on the ground is that all of these are getting violated, they're encroached by real estate mafia in cahoots with political class. And I would like to clarify that what happened during Congress before continues with BJP, because I've been trying to remove, to prevent an encroachment of a lake in my neighborhood, and the BJP government has filed an FIR against me for just tweeting.
Okay, we have a BJP spokesperson here.
So
There
all
you
these
go.
things.
He
So
says
what I'm
his
saying
experience is no different when it comes to Congress or BJP.
Absolutely not. I think, if you look at the amount of money that has been sanctioned for Bangalore, its infrastructure and its lakes, it runs into 10,000 crores in the last budget alone. So that clearly shows that the BJP government has intent, and we welcome, people like Sandeep to collaborate with us and show us the path forward, in improving Bangalore and its environment. So we are always open to collaboration, and we have showed our intent even in this year's budget with the outlay being, just 10,000 crores for the infrastructure and more than about 900 crores for Bangalore's lakes revival. Right. So that itself shows, we have the Nagarothana scheme that has been launched, which has set aside 6,000 crores for, urban rejuvenation. Right. So that itself, I think, is a large commitment on the side of the BJP towards improving.
But has the rejuvenation worked on that? Let's get an Asha on that. Yeah, okay, I'll just come to you in a minute because I think she's raised the issue of rejuvenation.
Some lakes, as I mentioned earlier, Hebal side, some
Right.
lakes have been. And it is because of citizens' involvement.
Initiative.
It is not that, government wanted to come and save any lake. Successive governments have failed. It's not that, recently, in maybe a month ago, Shivratri,
Right.
in a lake, a big statue was erected and the MLA was sitting in a studio and defending it. What do you do?
Right. So that's when it comes to the approach. All right. Sandeep, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, so what I wish to say is, we have the Karnataka Tank Conservation and Development Authority, which is in charge of all the lakes, and in the BBMP limits, it's the BBMP Lakes Department.
Right.
If you see, they neither have staffing. An entire zone has one AE for the lakes.
Right.
They are unable to protect the lakes, number one, from encroachment. Only where citizens are raising noise, they will come and protect that.
Right.
Remaining are all neglected. It's crazy. Most of the lakes, they build roads on top of it, they construct buildings, they get encroached. The buffer zones are literally always encroached. There is literally no management happening in the lakes. If you see, the lakes department is understaffed, they don't have resources and they don't have funds also sufficient to actually implement the about 200 lakes which are part of the NEERI report.
Right.
Now, I'd also, if you would allow me, like to highlight how we came to this situation. See, Bangalore wasn't, if you may, or maybe I can take it up later.
Go on.
So, Bengaluru actually became habitable because of its lakes. Before that, it is a high plateau on a ridge where rainwater used to just flow away. It was dry, it did not have vegetation even. 1,000, 2,000 years back, the locals figured out that in the valleys, if you just put bunds, you can conserve the rainwater that flows here. Those became the lakes. And famously, Kempegowda's mother said, when he said, I want to make a city in Bengaluru, her only words were this, Maragalnu nadu, Keragalnu kattu, which means plant trees and build lakes. Because they understood the intricate relationship between nature, vegetation and water.
Right. Fascinating.
That is what we have lost. Now what has happened? They built about 2,000 lakes. Ever since the British came, we have reduced, and British and then continuing British as I call us, because we have been educated in the way they thought, which is an engineering approach. We have reduced that 2,000 to about 400. What has gone missing? One, our dependency on the water. When we were depending on the lakes, even now, about 20 years back, outlying areas of Bengaluru, we used to depend directly on lake water and the groundwater.
For drinking purposes.
Drinking purpose. Then they were safe. The moment you get Kaveri pipeline water, those areas you start neglecting. So in the 60s, 70s, when we got Kaveri water for CBD, immediately all the lakes here became unimportant.
So you're saying people's attitudes also changed along with that?
According to
it's
you,
not just that.
dependency.
Yeah.
So initially
but that doesn't absolve the agencies. No. You're right to the extent
but even
now,
yeah. I'll come to that also. Even now, about 10 years, 20 years back, people were depending on the, as soon as Kaveri phase 2 comes, that entire area people lose respect for the lakes, they convert it into septic tanks. So there's a direct relationship between...
So people also have a responsibility.
Direct relationship between use. Second thing is about lawlessness. We have a whole lot of laws to protect every single thing. You have the wetland rules, you have the NGT rules, and you have the KTCD Act. Now, when it comes to implementation, it's very bad.
Right.
Why? Unless there is a citizen's demand, none of these get implemented.
Right.
So, where is the primary duty of government as makers of laws and implementers of laws?
Right.
Does it need a push every now and then?
I'm going to come in over here because, there's another reason we are debating this. It's not just about the lakes, it's also because of the chaos caused by flooding. Not once, not twice, but dozens of times over the last several decades. And there have been huge floods which have not just caused huge amount of loss, injury in terms of property, in terms of life, but also have caused huge amount of economic loss. And I want to bring in Asha on that. If you can break that down for our viewers and try and help us better understand, this is something that has an impact on all citizens of Bengaluru. How does rejuvenating the lakes, or at least paying respect to whatever is existing there, because the natural flow of water which he was trying to explain to us, which existed, the 4 valleys, all of that has been completely overrun with concrete. So what can be done now to try and ensure that at least further damage is not done, further flooding episodes don't happen?
We need to remove encroachments. The drive started in Bengaluru and Putenhalli.
But went into cold storage also.
Yes. Slow down. Finally, you have natural death. So we had to keep, the only way is media has to keep highlighting the same issue over and over again. Then people also feel fed up reading the same. So they think media has to do its bit. But what about government? They have seen how JCNRB lost so many documents there in a research institute, and nothing can move governments, successive governments, to do anything.
Right, absolutely.
Other day, airport, 2 days ago it got flooded, newly built.
Yes. Yes. So let me bring in Smriti on that. Smriti, because they are saying that there may be intent, and plans do get started, but ultimately, seeing it through is also, following it through is also very, very important. And that, unfortunately, despite the episodes, repeated episodes of flooding, which you as a citizen of the city very well know about, somehow that encroachment drive is just sort of tapers off. Why does that happen?
See, I think with our government, let me tell you, the intent has been very clear, even with response to handling of the floods that Bangalore faces year on year during the season of monsoon. I think we've set up a plan in place, and we've, like I said, the Basaraj Bommai government has instituted an inquiry into the encroachment of lakes to hold the people accountable for who gave sanctions for these lakes to get encroached in the first place. Right. And only once you do that will you know what measures have to be taken to remove those encroachments. Right. While that's on one side, 42 lakes, including our Majestic, the bus stand that we've built was a lake earlier. And all of these policy decisions were taken by the Congress government. Now, who are we going to hold accountable for this? Right? So this was done years ago, and now for us to reverse, close to half a century of work that has been done by the Congress in demolishing the environment of Bangalore, it's not going to happen overnight. The one thing that has plagued Bangalore is that, or Karnataka as a whole for that matter, is that we've never had a stable government. in all these years. It is my sincere plea to the people of Karnataka. I take this opportunity to tell them to please vote for a stable government this time, because that is the only way we can get legislation to move, that we can get policies to work. And that's where the implementation comes in.
JDS spokesperson vehemently disagrees and he wants to come in. So I'm going to allow him.
Let me tell you one thing. See, as you know, all know, HD Devagowda is more into irrigations and all those things. And when HD Kumaraswamy became a chief minister of Karnataka in 2006, it was then this A.T. Ramaswamy committee was formed to sort out this encroachment issues. Then that was all there's a lot of expectation, and there's a wonderful report was submitted with all the details and thousands of acres and all those things. But what happened to that? After that, BJP was in power, Congress was in power for 5 years. Nothing they did.
I want to bring in Asha on a very important point, because today we are at a situation where Bangalore depends completely on the Kaveri for drinking water purposes. Yet when it comes to the Kaveri itself, when it comes to building up infrastructure related to the Kaveri, and the Kaveri is also something that's very close to the hearts of the people of Karnataka. Political parties repeatedly refer to it, but the irony is what happens on ground is very different. Can you explain to us where our political parties and the political will is lacking?
Because water is not an issue for any political party to discuss even during elections. Kaveri controversy, legal issues are being debated at the most. But we are at the fifth stage of Kaveri. We can't bring any more water from Kaveri. We have exhausted it. So we need to tell people that, telling who should tell. It is government which has to alert people that, you can't just take water for granted. Even we will not politicize the issue. When it comes to water, there should be no politics. When it comes to Kaveri legal issue, they may not politicize. But when it comes to conservation of water, and it is nobody's job, that's the problem. And till now, almost we are just 3 weeks away from elections. Nobody is debating water.
Nobody is debating
That's
water. Why does that happen?
Bangalore.
Mr. Pratap Ganagwal, why does that happen? Where is this?
Partially agree with Asha, and partially I don't agree with whatever she said. See, as far as JDS is concerned, over the last two and a half years, we have been working on the field and doing extensive studies and preparing a report and making a plan. And we also come out with this thing called Janata Jaladhare. And we had we traveled, even we went, vehicles were sent out to all the districts, and the informations and what are the things to be taken care, all those things be done. And we are ready with the plan to not just Bangalore. See, rapid urbanization is not just in Bangalore, but it is affecting even the second tier and third tier cities. Forget about district headquarters, even taluk headquarters. If you go there, from taluk headquarters 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers range, you will see a lot of layouts are coming up.
But we are not learning our lessons. We are not learning our lessons.
So everybody want to have a plot. So that's what we want to regenerate the water. We want to focus on the rain harvesting. So that is our entire plan. We are ready with the plan.
But rain harvesting is always said by everyone. But when you actually go for the implementation,
nobody has
the
said
rich
that,
don't want to spend.
We are working for
and the
that
poor
for
can't
last
afford
2 years.
it.
Last 2 years we have been working on that, and we are ready with that.
Okay.
We want that.
But
That's a dream project for HD Devagowda, and we want to fulfill it now.
Okay, but because I want to bring in Sandeep, because this water harvesting, it sounds very fancy when everyone says that. Practically implementing it across the board is a very difficult thing, because you have a set of people who are apathetic even though they can afford it. There are poor who can't afford it genuinely and need government subsidy, and that still has not happened on ground.
No, this is where policy matters. Now, why do you have think tanks, intelligent folks, educated folks to create policies? Now, policy-wise, water policy, Karnataka, in fact, all of India has got it wrong always. We have always pursued this unfortunate colonial legacy of pursuing large engineering, which is to build large reservoirs, build pipelines. And every time you do that, you destroy the natural, local water ecosystem, which is the watershed management, lakes, ponds, etc. Now, there are simple ways you can fix it. Now the policy, do you know that for every liter of water that we consume from Kaveri, the bill that we pay is only about 10% of what it actually costs. Okay. Because we are shipping water from 100 kilometers away up a steep incline of 3,000 feet. The energy cost, the energy consumption, 50% wastage, that distance, that cost we are not paying for. We are only paying 10% of that cost. 90% is subsidized. Therefore, people do not know what the actual cost of the water they use is.
Right.
So you use it, you run it, wash cars and all that. But, so how do you, if this policy is subsidizing bad use, which is importing of water.
Right.
If you want to get the policy right, it's very simple. You subsidize local water security.
Okay.
if every ward can afforest, like Kempegowda's mother said, plant trees, rebuild ponds, recharge lakes. See, every lake that is rejuvenated, 4 to 5 square kilometers around it, groundwater gets recharged.
Right.
Okay. So then every house can have wells again.
Right.
Which is shallow wells. I'm not talking about bore wells.
Sounds like a reasonable solution, but Smriti, what's the
That's very
challenge in its
easy. Incentivize
implementation?
the right
There are
thing.
solutions available. What he says is it's just about applying minds and getting it done.
A large part of it, while we can make policy sitting in the comfort of a government cabin, ultimately it is the citizens that have to live up to these policies. It is easy to make utopian policies and say that it's good for every house to have, a bore well or a well at home. But look at the cost of land that is there in Bangalore today, right? It becomes unaffordable for a person to even build, square feet of land, and then you're asking them to leave aside setback area, you're asking them to leave aside, small space for a well. I think it just becomes practically infeasible when you have policy matters like that. I think...
Okay.
See, number one, I'm not saying you have to have the grandmother's well. You can just have a pump well. But the question here is, what is our money going towards? We are subsidizing import of water.
Okay.
If you subsidize the same amount, say, instead of subsidizing Kaveri water, everybody pays the actual cost of that water coming, and if you're consuming water from your own groundwater, make it free. If it is within a ward, you can pump water from your own lakes. Then you have a subsidized rate. That subsidy, pass it here, so that you know what will happen. One, you will have local water security. Remember that we are walking into a climate crisis. We have a climate emergency happening. You're going to have a water crisis. 2 years back, Anekal banned water exports to Bangalore. You had protests on Sarjapur Road.
Right.
This is going to become more frequent. Right now, most of the borewell water that is consumed in Bangalore comes from the neighboring, because our outlying areas, borewells are at 2,000 feet. We have already lost our water security. You have to revive the shallow aquifer water security.
Right.
So it's about policy making. And I'll tell you one
There's
more
also
thing.
heavy rain incidents that are happening at the same time.
That
So
is
we'll
also
prepare
a
for that
climate
as well,
change
on the other
result.
end.
And because we have, there is no permeability of soil now because it's all concretized. And our wetlands are all encroached. So what happens is only one way water can flow. That is as a runoff. That's why you're having flash floods.
Right.
That is also because of the loss of our ecosystem.
Which is why water conservation becomes
But let
important.
me come to policy making. The Knowledge Commission of Karnataka has a draft water policy. It was ready 2 years back. Why is the government not adopting it? Because that water policy I have seen. It is prepared by ATRI and a lot of other scientific bodies. It actually talks of promoting ecological use of water.
Okay.
So why can't the government table it and implement it?
Is this something that can be considered and implemented?
See, this is something that the government will probably look into. I cannot comment on the on behalf of the government, but what I can say is that there's been clear intent when it comes to the BJP in natural conservation. Be it the Namami Gange project, where a river as vast and wide and long as the Ganga was brought back to life, was cleaned up and is made drinkable. I think if a large-scale project like that has been implemented, we've also looked at interlinking of rivers. We've looked at all the macro policy solutions that have to be implemented across the country for managing our water, and that has been done by the central government. And I'm very confident that the state government will implement the same over here in Karnataka as well under the double engine Sarkar.
Okay, the experience of Ganga which will be implemented over here. I'm coming to you. Yeah.
See, there is a lot of things are said and not done. Okay, that I'll keep it aside. But need of the hour is we need to decentralize the development. What's the biggest problem is everything has to be done in Bangalore. Bengaluru is the only place. It's for any government for that matter. According to me, it's not a challenge for any government to bring an investment to Bangalore. Any company will come. Blindly they will come and invest. IT companies, they will come and invest. The biggest challenge is how you take them outside Bangalore and push outside Bangalore. Bangalore has enough of development. Now we are at present we are facing we are maybe by 2030 we'll be having no water to drink,
Right.
no water to wash.
Right. That's also an important
we have
part
to
because
move
rapid urbanization also has an aspect of people coming in and people who may be from other parts of the country coming in, and that also has an impact on the population. That also has an impact on the way we look at conservation, the way we look at the long-term impact on the particular city and the state as a whole as well. Asha?
Yeah, Mysore is really, it has been turning into another Bangalore. Recently, the government cleared 22,000 crore semiconductor industry. There, the promoter said we wanted to go to Tamil Nadu, but when we checked the quality of water, Mysore quality water is better.
semiconductor, as you know, it consumes a lot of, then people, even today, we don't know how much water is going to be given to that company. Mysore doesn't have Kaveri water. It is a drought. See, next to Rajasthan, we have the highest, drought-prone area, Karnataka. It is romantically we want to think that Bangalore is lakes and garden city. Those days gone.
Right.
It's no more.
It's a very serious matter.
Very serious matter because it is life and death question. We don't. What is life without water? Can we just think of?
Absolutely.
So policies, how it gets cleared is nth minute in investors meet, or it can. I'm not saying that this government, successive governments, when it comes to say, we realized that Bangalore airport is going to get Kaveri water 1 TMC only after it was cleared. We didn't know.
Right.
Devanahalli had so much agriculture and lakes. All gone now.
Right.
We need airport, but let there be transparency.
There has to be a balance. There has to be a balance, and we'll have to draw it to a close over here. We've had a very interesting discussion. There have been a lot of completely out of time, Sandeep. I'm so sorry. We're completely out of time, but it's a very interesting and a very important discussion because this is just not the story of Bengaluru. It is a story, and there are lessons to learn for all our major cities in terms of water conservation, in terms of the rapid urbanization, and how our urban planners are going to ensure that the citizens are not parched, and that even citizens, it's their responsibility as well to ensure that while they may complain about the powers that be, that they also play a constructive role to prevent this kind of situation from happening on ground. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.